Hello, and welcome to Change the Face of Yoga, teaching toddlers through golden oldies. I'm very excited to be talking to lots of yoga teachers who will explain their passion for teaching yoga to students with different ages, physical fitness levels, wellness levels, and different goals. They will explain the benefits of yoga for these students and will be including teacher tips and pose modifications. I am Stephanie Cunningham of Yoga Lightness, and I've been teaching over 50s for 10 years. So this area is my passion and the passion of many other yoga teachers that you will be listening to in this series. Thank you so much for listening, and let's get started. This is episode 006, part 1, and this is about retirement coaching, using yoga to help a person through the transition to retirement. We will be discussing the elements of retirement coaching, and we have a guest who will discuss the process that she went through. So how's that dream retirement going? If you recently retired or are considering it, let me tell you, retirement isn't all it's cracked up to be. And in fact, you may find that after a while, it becomes an issue. So using yoga to help you work through the issues of retirement came about for me because I retired. And it was really, really hard. I had worked all my life, and because I had moved to a new country, the visa did not allow me to work. So I was really at my wit's end. Volunteered, took classes, did all those things. We just traveled around the world, so I really wasn't too interested in traveling at that moment. And so it became a real issue in a lot of different ways. And I think that this is quite a common realization for people who suddenly find themselves in the retirement mode or planning for the retirement mode. And I want to tell you what I did about it. I developed a coaching program based on yoga to help people plan what they wanted to do for their retirement. Now, you may be going to a financial planner, that's great, but that probably isn't going to be your biggest issue with retirement. Like me, you may find that the really biggest issue is things like not having a purpose. What happens when you are not contributing like you did before in your job or with your family who's all grown up and on their own now? Or whatever your particular purposes were, they may have stopped with retirement. The second issue is a lot of us get a lot of our social interaction through our jobs, our children and their activities. And without that, it becomes something that you really have to plan and go out and do. And so in some ways, retirement is like going through the teenage years again, when you're suddenly in a very different environment and you have to kind of remake yourself. So you have to find out, what is my long-term purpose? What do I want to do for, quite frankly, 20 to 30 years, most of which most people are in very good health. So you have to find your purpose. You have to find how you're going to interact socially with people. And it's a difficult process. So let me tell you about the coaching, just so you can see that yoga can be used for a variety of things. Yoga is very holistic. You may only think of it as athletic. You see pictures of young bendy people doing really fancy poses, and that's one small group of the yoga people in the world. But yoga also consists of other things, like working on energy through breath and learning how to relax and release. And then yamas and niyamas are kind of social guidelines for how to live your life, and very much into lifestyle kinds of things, how well you eat, how well you sleep, how well you take care of yourself. So that is yoga in its entirety, and unless you have done yoga or been really involved with it, you may not realize it. And so I want to give you kind of an overview of how all of those aspects of yoga can be used to make your retirement much more successful. Now, one of the things that happens as we use our body throughout our lives is that those, whatever it is, whether it's sports or how we work or whatever, it shows up in your body after a while. And so the first thing we're going to do is really look at how well the body's working. As an example, someone who works at a computer a lot may be slightly hunched. And what that means is that the muscles in the front upper chest may become shortened, and the muscles in the upper back become longer and less strong. And so you may show that in your physique, and your posture will probably be affected. And that particular manifestation, shall we say, probably impacts your breathing to an extent. And if you are kind of hunched over, it's extremely hard to take a good deep breath. So that may also impact your energy. So the first thing we do is we look at the body, and we look at your posture, and we look at all of those muscles to say, are they in the normal range? Are they really loose and not strong? Are they really tight and pulling? So that's the first thing we'll look at, to just make sure that your body, if possible, can go through some yoga postures to loosen up, to strengthen whatever's needed, those kinds of things. Because you'll feel better if your body's in better shape. And then I'll give you a survey. And the survey looks at what you've achieved in your life, what you have not achieved, what you would like to achieve. We'll look at lifestyle issues. How well do you sleep? How do you eat? Alcohol, those kinds of things, just to get an idea of where you are, kind of the baseline, if you will. And so we're looking at hopefully improving your body, but also helping the body with lifestyle changes, so that lack of sleep or a bad diet all affect how well you feel and how well your body works. And then we'll talk about the more emotional issues, which include things like, what are unmet goals in your life, and do you still want to meet them? What are new interests or long-term interests that you might like to explore? What do you want to do with really a significant portion of your life? What do you want to achieve at the end? How do you want to feel that you are contributing? Because almost everyone wants to contribute to their family, to their community. That's just kind of inborn in us. And although retirement is certainly a lovely time to take more time for yourself, it probably won't be enough. And you need to think about really seriously how you plan to develop a life purpose for these last 20, 30 years. So we'll talk a lot about that. And basically what you will come up with is a tentative plan. And the plan will say, and we'll talk about what you think those purposes are that you want to achieve. And you'll figure out how you're going to achieve them. What are the steps that are needed? The financial steps, do you have to learn something? Do you have to, whatever those logistical steps might be to get to that purpose. What are they, and how could you do that, and what is a tentative timeline? So that you have an idea, you have a real focus when either you retire or you're in the early retirement stages. And that gives you guidance. Now, am I saying that you will follow that plan exactly? Probably not. But you will have worked it through in your mind what kinds of things you want to achieve and where you're going. And one of the big things that you might have to work through is social kinds of things. If you and your partner or spouse are suddenly at home together all the time, that can cause some friction. So when we talk about how to handle that, how you want to handle that, all I do is really ask the right questions, and hopefully you're the one through different methods come up with the answers that make sense for you. How are you going to interact with others of your age or younger or older, however you want to do it? Is volunteering a possibility for you? Did you want to start your own, small business part-time? Did you want to do extensive traveling? Whatever it is that would result in you doing things that give you purpose is what we are trying to achieve. I've known many people that have retired, and the first 6 to 18 months are lovely. They're wonderful. You get, tick off all those things on your bucket list, and you read books you haven't had time for, and you do it yourself projects, and you travel, and it sounds really great. Unfortunately, those are pretty short term. Obviously, we want to do those short term things and those things you've been dreaming of, but you also need to think in the long term about what you truly want to achieve. And if you have some specific goals, a specific plan of what you're going to do when you no longer have the social interaction, the contributory elements of a job, what is it that's going to take that place? And what is it in the long term, not just for 6 to 18 months? So next, we're going to talk to someone who went through this process with me. And she's going to tell you about her experience with it.
And I have a guest. Jenny and I are friends. So if we dissolve into giggles, just ignore us. We'll get back to you. But Jenny went through my retirement coaching process, and we're going to talk about it just so all you listeners can figure out how it works. And I want to introduce you to Jenny. Her name's Jennifer Greaney, and she's kind of semi-retired. Is that a fair statement, Jenny?
Ish, yes. I guess you could say, because I've moved out of the university job and I'm now half-time with that. So I'm retiring from that and moving into other things. So I don't know what you call that.
Okay. Ish is probably good. Okay.
Yeah.
Why did it sound like something you might like to do?
Well, actually, it was during at the end of a yoga class. You told the class about the work that you were doing, and I remember sitting there on the floor, coming to after a beautiful what's that thing called at the end of a yoga class? Yoga nidra. And you were talking about this, and I just went, I want to do that. So really, although you did sort of put it out there, I practically ran up to you after the class to say, I'd really like to try that. So I really wanted to do it because at the time, I guess really since I had turned 50, I'd had this feeling that I wasn't really living my life to my fullest potential or to at least to be working towards realizing my passions. So I was probably about 57 at the time when we did this. I'm not quite sure, but I thought, I could sure use some help with, thinking about how I might do things differently from there on in. So it seemed like, I practically jumped at it. So yeah, it really did kind of go, oh yeah, that would be so helpful to me.
Okay. So where were you at that time? You were working full-time at the university, is that correct?
I was at that time, yes. Had a
Okay.
full-time permanent position in the law school as a associate lecturer in law.
And so you had a pretty secure, shall we say, position, but you were thinking about retirement in some form at that time?
Well, I was feeling like I was, not really enjoying the work as much as I had to begin with. It was a situation where half of my time I got to teach a unit that I was passionate about, and the other half I had to teach stuff about English legal history and other things that didn't really inspire me. And believe me, I'm being very polite in the way I express this. So
I
it was like
appreciate that.
understatement. Yeah, I'm not normally
Yeah.
good at understatement, but so it was like I was thinking if I could just do the bits that I like, this would be a good job. But I was really beginning to hate actually the putting such a lot of effort into something that just really wasn't of any interest to me. I just don't care about the kings and queens of England and their merry men. I just, so I was struggling with that, and it was just an awareness that, do I really want to live out my life doing stuff that I'm half-hearted about? And, I just also kind of come back to a part of my life that I hadn't really, connected with since I'd been in my 20s. And that was working with energies and crystals. And it was sort of, how am I going to, I don't know, I just, even trying to talk about it is indicative of how I was at the time. I was just, how am I going to do this? I really want to do this other stuff that's got a more spiritual, less in the material world um, aspect to it. But I was filled with doubts and worried about what people would think and worried about security. And so I was sort of torn between being sensible and staying with a well-paid, secure job that had fantastic superannuation and lots of perks and so forth, and knowing it wasn't really making me very happy.
We know where you were, so where are you right now? What are you doing right now?
I'm lying down in my bed really comfortably. I know that's not what you meant.
Well, I'm really glad though.
I thought, why not be relaxed?
Yes.
I'm actually in a place of transition right now. My partner and I decided that we were going to move from our inland place, a couple of 100 kilometres inland from Coffs Harbour, a place called Invergowrie near Armidale, and try it out living at the coast for a while. So we're currently in holiday accommodation. We have 2 weeks left. We have nowhere to live, and so we're kind of in that slightly scary limbo position, wondering what we're doing. And it's making it a little bit difficult to sort of because I want to sort of set up a business here doing this energy work, but it's a little bit tricky at the moment because we don't even have a place to live, so it's a bit challenging. But I know that what I want to do is to be working with people in the healing area, working with people, working with their energies, helping them to reconnect with themselves and become aware of the powers that exist underneath the surface of the material world that we can tap into to, um, you know, be better connected with ourselves, clear our blocks that hold us back. So, yeah, that general type of work that I find so very rewarding. That's what I'm hoping to set up down here. But at the moment, it's just that in between place of I think limbo is a good way of describing it.
Okay. But you did set up that kind of something very similar to that in the place that you used to live. Isn't that right?
Yeah. Yes, I did. I started off working from home and setting up a room in my house as a crystal healing space, and I started working with friends, and it was the most amazing thing because once I started doing the work, I just became so much happier. I loved working with people and working with the energies and working with the crystals, and it felt like I was more peaceful, I was more centered, I was more joyous. And so, so it wasn't so financially secure, but it certainly made me feel a lot better about myself and that I was doing something useful in the world, because working with a bunch of um, fairly privileged law students never really felt like what I was here on the earth to do. They were going to be fine without me. I want to work with people at a much deeper level and people who will benefit from what my real gifts are. So, yeah, that was where I started.
Okay. How would you say that the work that we did with the coaching supported your need to change in your life at that point?
Well, there were a number of things. I think one is that just to stop and turn your attention to the very question of what are you doing and what would you like to be doing, rather than just going along from day to day doing things because you've done them for a long time. So I think that there is something really valuable in making a conscious decision that you're going to stop and look at this part of your life. Then to be supported by someone who is skilled and has a good strategy to work through, well, that's even better, because then you're not just floundering around in the dark. You're actually doing it in a structured way and looking at being asked specific questions that are designed to get you more in touch with yourself and to reflect on things that you've done and things that are holding you back, and how you can better set your goals. So you had a whole lot of resources that helped me to look at this area of my life in a structured way that was extremely helpful, because I can tend to go around and around in my own head with things, and structure is not my strong suit. So that work that you did was highly structured and gave me a lot more clarity and purpose about how we went about it.
it's such a big change, and I don't think people often realize it until they're maybe right at the beginning of it or in the middle of it. And so I think structure is needed to help people really think about it without all the emotion that's attached to it, because there is a lot of emotion about changing your life. And so I thought that you did really an excellent job, because what I've always loved is the juxtaposition of being a law in tutor and then being a crystal healer. I just love those two together. I think I think that shows how diverse all of us are, and to go from one to the next, and to really know, because obviously you've done really well with the crystal healing. You had your own business when you were at the other place, and now you're starting it up again. So it obviously is something that's very satisfying for you.
It really is. Yeah, it really is. And, you know, there are aspects of the law that still appeal to me. The particular way of thinking about things, the analysis, is a sort of very highly logical and analytical area. And I really enjoy that. I actually I'm working at the moment with a private student. I'm tutoring privately, and I'm just absolutely loving, because this person's just beginning, and I'm loving introducing her to the way of thinking in law, and seeing her kind of click with it. And so I love all of that. But then, interestingly, when I do the healing, I actually have to put that side of my brain aside and open up to a completely different area of my brain or my being. That is the intuition. And the logical side is actually a hindrance in this work, because what the logical side will do is that when you're tuned into your intuition, it might, suggest that what you need to do now is to put your hand on the person's forehead, for example, and then sometimes, especially when I first started doing the crystal healing, that analytical voice would say, "Oh, that's just silly," and kind of have something to say about what the intuition was telling me. And now I've realised, with the experience of working with a lot of people, that I do need to listen to the intuition, and I need to tell that logical brain to just, stand aside, that this isn't the place for that kind of critical analysis. So it's fascinating to know that I can access those two aspects of myself, and that they're both, really opposite ends of the room. And but that both of them are useful to me in the two areas of my work. It's an extraordinary sort of dichotomy, I guess you could say.
It is. But it makes you interesting. So
Thank you.
So really, if I can paraphrase, the retirement coaching helped you find that purpose, that satisfaction in your life as you go forward. Obviously, parts of your life that we're doing before are also satisfying, but you've also really expanded this other area, this intuitive area, and found it to be equally satisfying.
That's right. And I think that there was a kind of encouragement that came from the work too. Just the idea that almost like being given permission, that it's okay to try something different. It's a good thing to try something different, because the self-reflection that was involved in the process, that you put me through sort of gave a better balance of like, yes, of course we need to have some kind of financial security, or it's better to have some financial security, but it also gave value to the other aspects of myself that I looked at through the process, and I don't know, it just made me think, doing that work with you actually made me think, I can do this. It's okay. It's legitimate. It's not silly. I got brought up to believe in financial security, and, that was the most highly valued thing. And I think that's kind of what our society does to people generally. And then there's a lot of people not happy with their jobs out there because there's so much emphasis on the financial security and less value given to what makes you tick as a person, what gets you going. So to have that balance in my life now it's part of why it's satisfying. I like going back to the law books and reading cases. I still love that. Because I'm half-time, I don't have to do anything I don't want to do anymore. Generally speaking, I've been able to make the law side work with my interests, so I'm enjoying that a whole lot more, doing that half-time, and now I've got this other area of work that is incredibly satisfying. So even talking about this now and reflecting on where I am now is a pretty cool thing to do, to sort of go, wow, I'm really happy with, where I've come with this. I'm really happy with it. And I'm happy that I've still got, there was a time when I wanted to quit the law altogether because it's like, oh, I can't stand this anymore. But actually having that as, a half-time job does allow me to mould it into something that suits me a whole lot better.
Oh, excellent.
Thank you, Jenny, for that wonderful interview. If this is part one of a two-part series about retirement coaching. And this part dealt with changes in your life and how to find purpose for the rest of your life and your retirement. If you would like to talk to Jenny about crystal healing, her business is Deepspace Healing, and the mobile number is 0457-723-265. And she can also do remote energy healing if you are not close to where she lives. So this is part one, and the next part is about lifestyle changes, which is also an area where yoga is helpful. It will be on next week, and if you would like to contact me about retirement coaching for yourself, you can contact me at my email, which is info@yogalightness, all one word, .com.au, or you can phone my mobile at 0448-091-756. Please join us next week to hear the second part of this series.